All right, let's enjoy another essay Rambler from Dr. Johnson. This is for this is number 20 for Saturday, May 26th, 1750. The title being The Folly and Inconvenience of Affection. A little Latin here. Ad populum faleris, ego te intus et incut novi. Persius. And then a quote. Such pageantry be to the people shown, there boast thy horse's trappings and thy own. I know thee to thy bottom from within, thy shallow centre to thy utmost skin. Dryden. Among the numerous stratagems by which pride endeavours to recommend folly to regard, there is scarcely one that meets with less success than affection, or a perpetual disguise of the real character by fictitious appearances, whether it be that every man hates falsehood, from the natural congruity of truth to his faculties of reason, or that every man is jealous of the honor of his understanding, and thinks his discernment consequently called in question whenever anything is exhibited under a borrowed form. This aversion from all kinds of disguise, whatever be its cause, is universally diffused and incessantly in action, nor is it necessary that to exasperate detestation or excite contempt, any interest should be invaded, or any competition attempted. It is sufficient that there is an intention to deceive. There is an intention to deceive, an intention which every heart swells to oppose, and every tongue is busy to detect. This reflection was awakened in my mind by a very common practice among my correspondents of writing under characters which they cannot support, which are of no use to the explanation or enforcement of that which they describe or recommend, and which, therefore, since they assume them only for the sake of displaying their abilities, I will advise them for the future to forbear, as laborious without advantage. It is almost a general ambition of those who favor me with their advice for the regulation of my conduct, or their contribution for the assistance of my understanding, to affect the style and the names of ladies, and I cannot always withhold some expression of anger, like Sir Hugh in the comedy, when I happen to find that a woman has a beard. I must therefore warn the gentle Phyllis that she sends me no more letters from the Horse Guards, and require of Belinda that she be content to resign her pretensions to female elegance, till she has lived 3 weeks without hearing the politics of Batson's coffee house. I must indulge myself in the liberty of observation, that there were some allusions to Chloris's production, sufficient to show that Bracton and Plowden are her favorite authors, and that Euphoria has not been long enough at home to wear out all the traces of the phraseology which she learned in the expedition to Carthagena. Among all my female friends, there was none who gave me more trouble to decipher her true character than Penthesilea, whose letter lay upon my desk 3 days before I could fix upon the real writer. There was a confusion of images and medley of barbarity, which held me long in suspense, till by perseverance I disentangled the perplexity, and found that Penthesilea is the son of a wealthy stockjobber, who spends his morning under his father's eye in Change Alley, dines at a tavern in Covent Garden, passes his evening in the playhouse, and part of the night at a gaming table, and having learned the dialects of these various regions, has mingled them all in a studied composition. When Lee was told by a critic that it was very easy to write like a madman, he answered that it was difficult to write like a madman, but was easy enough to write like a fool. And I hope to be excused by my kind contributors if, in imitation of this great author, I presume to remind them that it is much easier not to write like a man than to write like a woman. I have indeed some ingenious well-wishers who, without departing from their sex, have found very wonderful appellations. A very smart letter has been sent me from a puny ensign signed Ajax Ptolemaeus. Another in recommendation of a new treatise upon cards from a gamester who calls himself Sesochus, and another upon the improvements of the fishery from Dioclesian. But as these seem only to have picked up their appellations by chance, without endeavoring at any particular imposture, their improprieties are rather instances of blunder than of affectation, and are therefore not equally fitted to inflame the hostile passions. For it is not folly but pride, not error but deceit, which the world means to persecute, when it raises the full cry of nature to hunt down affection. The hatred which dissimulation always draws upon itself is so great that if I did not know how much cunning differs from wisdom, I should wonder that any men have so little knowledge of their own interest as to aspire to wear a mask for life, to try to impose upon the world a character to which they feel themselves void of any just claim, and to hazard their quiet, their fame, and even their profit, by exposing themselves to the danger of that reproach, malevolence, and neglect, which such a discovery as they have always to fear will certainly bring upon them. It might be imagined that the pleasure of reputation should consist in the satisfaction of having our opinion of our own merit confirmed by the suffrage of the public, and that to be extolled for a quality which a man knows himself to want should give him no other happiness than to be mistaken for the owner of an estate over which he chances to be traveling. But he who subsists upon affection knows nothing of this delicacy. Like a desperate adventurer in commerce, he takes up reputation upon trust, mortgages possessions which he never had, and enjoys to the fatal hour of bankruptcy, though with 1,000 terrors and anxieties, the unnecessary splendor of borrowed riches. Affection is to be always distinguished from hypocrisy, as being the art of counterfeiting those qualities which we might, with innocence and safety, be known to want. Thus the man who to carry on any fraud, or to conceal any crime, pretends to rigors of devotion and exactness of life, is guilty of hypocrisy, and his guilt is greater, as an end for which he puts on the false appearance is more pernicious. But he that with an awkward address and unpleasing countenance boasts of the conquests made by him among the ladies, and counts over the thousands which he might have possessed if he would have submitted to the yoke of matrimony, is chargeable only with affection. Hypocrisy is the necessary burthen of villainy, affection part of the chosen trappings of folly. The one completes a villain, the other finishes a fop. Contempt is the proper punishment of affection, and detestation the just consequence of hypocrisy. With the hypocrite, it is not at present my intention to expostulate, though even he might be taught the excellency of virtue by the necessity of seeming to be virtuous. But the man of affection may, perhaps, be reclaimed by finding how little he is likely to gain by perpetual constraint and incessant vigilance, and how much more securely he might make his way to esteem by cultivating real than displaying counterfeit qualities. Everything future is to be estimated by a wise man in proportion to the probability of attaining it, and its value when attained, and neither of these considerations will much contribute to the encouragement of affection. For if the pinnacles of fame be, at best, slippery, how unsteady must be must his footing be who stands upon pinnacles without foundation. If praise be made by the inconstancy and maliciousness of those who must confer it, a blessing which no man can promise himself from the most conspicuous merit and vigorous industry, how faint must be the hope of gaining it, when the uncertainty is multiplied by the weakness of the pretensions. He that pursues fame with just claims trusts his happiness to the winds, but he that endeavors after it by false merit has to fear not only the violence of the storm, but the leaks of his vessel. Though he should happen to keep above water for a time, by the help of the soft breeze and a calm sea, and the first gust he must inevitably founder, with his melancholy reflection that if he would have been content with his natural station, he might have escaped his calamity. Affection may possibly succeed for a time, and a man may, by great attention, persuade others that he really has the qualities which he presumes to boast. But the hour will come when he should exert them, and then whatever he enjoyed in praise, he must suffer in reproach. Applause and admiration are by no means to be counted among the necessaries of life, and therefore any indirect arts to obtain them have very little claim to pardon or compassion. There is scarcely any man without some valuable or improvable qualities by which he might always secure himself from contempt, and perhaps exemption from ignominy is the most eligible reputation, as freedom from pain is, among some philosophers, the definition of happiness. If we therefore compare the value of the praise obtained by fictitious excellence, even while the cheat is yet undiscovered, with that kindness which every man may suit by his virtue, and that esteem to which most men may rise by common understanding, steadily and honestly applied, we find that when from the adventitious happiness all the deductions are made by fear and causality, there will remain nothing equiponderant to the security of truth. The state of the possessor of humble virtues to the effector of great excellencies is that of a small cottage of stone to the palace raised with ice by the Empress of Russia. It was for a time splendid and luminous, but the first sunshine melted it to nothing.